did you get started in model railroading?
1954. Living in the city of St. Thomas, was just adopted. And in the city of St. Thomas is a railroad town, as if anybody knows. But anyway, I lived about 100 yards, maybe 100 yards, not even that, 100 feet away from the railroad tracks that run through the main city of St. Thomas. And this one day, the big black engine comes up, stops right smack dab in front of our place. Engineer gets out, runs over. "Where's Bobby?" Grabs me, throws me in the cab of the engine, and off we go to Windsor for the day. Takes me to a Greasy Spoon, comes back. That's a restaurant, if I was wondering. And comes back. And the best day I ever had. 2 years later, not thinking, I never even put it on my Christmas list for a train layout. And I find out afterwards, my parents paid the kids 25 cents to keep their mouths shut because they had already snuck the train layout into the house. A couple of days before Christmas, Father and I were sitting up the tree. He sends me to the laundry room where the train load is hid. Sends me to the laundry room to pick up a hammer and nail. So I just put my hand on the door, and my mother in the kitchen says, "Robert, where are you going?" "I'm getting a hammer and nail for Dad." "Clarence, yeah. Could you get him a hammer and nails?" I should have known something was happening then, because my grandfather worked on the New York Central, his wife, my uncle worked on the C&O, another uncle who worked on the Wabash. All these people are over for Christmas Eve. What is going on? So meanwhile, then I find out they send me to bed. But I would go through the hallway, look into the room, see if I could see anything, because our living room was a sunken living room. It was a foot down from the dining room, then the living room, and it was a foot down, and they had covered everything with newspapers, so I couldn't see it if I wanted to anyway. For the rest of the night, they're arguing how to set this train layout out. One was saying, "No, it should be, our railroad runs this way." Another railroad says they run that way. "No, it runs this way." Then back and forth, they were arguing over how to set this. Meanwhile, I got my trains. That's how I started.
Do you still have the original set?
Still got it today. B units down there with the New York Central, still sitting. I don't run it. It's got 1,000,000 miles on it because it ran, but still runs though. But now the B units are most of the cars I picked up. Yeah, I still got the original set that I had when I got my trains. The village is still the same, so most of the buildings in the village are the original. The only one I've ever sold, and I sold it to a nurse who was looking after my father. She saw my train layout, brought her son over, and he really fell in love with it. So for a small token of my appreciation, I made up a train set for him.
Are there different scales of trains?
Oh yeah, it runs from my scale is classified as O. The next one down from it is S, which is American Flyer. It goes to 2-rail then. Under S gauge is HO. Now HO is broken up into 2 or 3 different sizes, but all basically the same. Then under HO there's N, which is small, and then there's Z, which is real small. That's where you need a magnifying glass. Then going the opposite way, after O gauge, going up, you have classified as Garden Railway or LGB. It's 1 1/4 inch scale. Then after that, it's live steam. Nothing LGB and large scale is the last of the electrified. Anything after that, I think, goes to live steam, which I'd love to get into. But the cost is way, way too high. Plus, you'd have to have your own machine shop where you make your own boilers, pressure test them, and it's actually a live steam engine. And then you'd have to have the area and the room to set up a set of tracks, and it's something you just can't go to the neighborhood hardware store and buy. It's something you have to have enjoyment making and doing and rebuilding. But in my time, the O gauge was the most popular. And then they had Lionel, what was the Cadillac of trains. Marx was the next one under. Then American Flyer, which was Gilbert's, they came in and they were the next scale down. HO came in, I think, in the late 60s, maybe early 70s, and they really pushed. Now, HO is fabulous. They make beautiful layouts, and you can compromise the size of. You had an HO layout on this layout, it'd be fabulous. It's the things you could do with it.
Why do you prefer O scale?
I like to see what's happening. Big enough I can handle it. Little hands, little kids come in, they can handle it. HO, little kids, it's a little hard for them to put them on the track or actually see it this way. They can actually see things running. You see the engines, you see the workings of it, and the how it works. And if you ever have to repair them, a couple screws, body comes off, and you can actually work on the engines. Where the HO and down, no, they're time consuming, and you got to know what you're doing to work on them. But this way, I fix everything I got. I can get parts for it. If I have to rebuild something, rewind it. Now, if it breaks, like a body breaks, then you're out of luck anyway. But I can pick up bodies at the trade shows.
Where do they hold the trade shows?
In Canada, they're few and far between. In the States, I hate to say it, they're practically, you can practically get almost one a month in different parts of the States. I go to the States twice a year, and they're put on by the TCA, Train Collectors Association, out of Strasburg, Pennsylvania. Now they have 2 shows in York, Pennsylvania, April and October, and it's toy heaven. If you want something, you need something in this scale, you can get it. All the manufacturers go to this show. Any company that manufactures anything to do with trains, go to these shows. And market, it's a dying market, because you don't see, especially when you go to the shows, you don't see the younger kids going. It's more my age, maybe a few years younger, but that's about it. And then it's all the older guys that are going to these shows. But those are the 2 I go to all the time, and it's different than here. In Canada, you got to pay every time you go to a show. Where I go down there for a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I go to 4, 5, 6 different shows in hotels, convention halls, fire halls, all for nothing. You walk in the door, you walk around, you hop in the car, you go to another one. And that's for the first 3 days. Then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday is the big show in the fairgrounds. It takes every building in the fairgrounds. Only members can go, but I can take one member once if they want to go down with me. There's a fee for them to come in. But other than that, if you're a diehard collector and you're looking for something, that's where to go. Because if you can't find it at York, you get to talk to some of the guys, and with guaranteed by 6 months, you go back, talk to him again, he will have that part or that particular item that you want. And I don't know, in Canada you don't see that here. And the prices are in Canada ridiculous anyway. Where down there is it's high to a point, but it's still profitable to go down there and bring it back here.
Is there a connection with your profession and your interest in trains?
At 8 years old, playing with trains, you have that curiosity on how things work. And you realize when you put your hand across the track, and especially if you got a metal watch band, it burns real quick. So you got to find out why and how come. So then you start troubleshooting and why things don't work and how come why works. And then one of the things I picked up was a voltmeter. Then I get into high school, and I wanted to go through as a auto mechanic. So I'm sitting in the auto shop doing my stuff, and the next thing I know, that the electrical teacher comes down, takes me out, and says, "I want you to write this test." And I said, "I don't know anything about this stuff. Write this test. You know more about this than what you actually say you do." So I sat down and I wrote this test. I ended up with the highest marks in the Golden Horseshoe and won an electrical apprenticeship. This was back when I was 16 years old. Not knowing the fact I was playing with voltmeters and electricity at an early age learned me how to diagnose problems, trace problems, figure out why it doesn't work, fix what doesn't work, and make things working. So when you didn't think about it, and then next thing you know, this is how I got into the trade. But I always knew if power went in, it has to come out. And if it doesn't come out, there's a reason why. So all I got to do is either backstep it or follow it through to find out where it stopped, why it stopped, and then fix the problem and then continue on with it. And it's been fun. And yeah, I've been in the trade over almost 40 years now.
Did you ever lose interest in this hobby?
I don't think I've really lost interest in it. There's been a few times, like when we went to Quebec, I had to put it in storage, but I kept a few pieces out and put it on the shelf. I always had it around me, and then there's the odd time I'd set a track up in the living room on the floor, and the wife would get upset because she'd have to tiptoe over it. But then, no, I never really lost interest. But I was never like a normal kid growing up, where everybody played sports and baseball and hockey, and I was a loner. I stayed by myself. I had friends, but not enough to the point where I would really enjoy having people over. So I'd put myself in my bedroom and play with my trains.
Are there pieces in your collection you don't run?
Well, some of the older stuff, like as I said, the original, original New York Central diesels, I won't run those because they've been like I probably put 1 million miles on those, and they're all original, and they still run, but I prefer not to run them, just to keep them as they were. Other than that, nah, I will run things for a certain length of time, then I'll take it off. Cars are cars. Doesn't matter. Power units, that's different. I'll bring out one. Usually once a year, I'll oil everything, run it through the track, run it through the system, make sure everything works, and then if I like it, I'll leave it on the track. If I don't, I'll put back something else and run something else, because I have 1 or 2 locomotives hanging around here. So 90% of all the stuff I have, I do run. I will run it at least once a year, but there's my favorite ones that I'll run constantly.
Does your setup take much power to run?
Not really. It's running on one 15 amp circuit. There is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think there's about 9 total transformers. But considering they're not all running all at the same time, and the actual load is not really that high. In the village, I've gone to LED lights, nice brightness. Very low voltage. The amperage is low, but some of the cars are LED lights, or they're fiber optics in it. So I'm just getting into that part of it. But no, it's actually quite reasonable to run, and it doesn't dim the lights in the house when I turn it on. Let's put it that way.
Is there anyone else in your family that has showed interest in the trains?
My oldest boy, no. My youngest one is my daughter, and she made me buy the pink locomotive set. She really twisted my arm a lot. That's what I say. But I always wanted that the girls set to begin with, so that's why I had to get it. But that's hers, and I've asked her, is there anything you want on the layout? When something happens to me. And she says, yeah, there's a few unique things I want to keep, and then that says, yeah. So, yeah, I think it will continue on a little bit.
What are some of the pieces in your village?
The village itself, the cathedral, the school, the gas station, the snack bar, and the one house that's brown now. It used to be pink. Don't ask me why it got changed, but pink was not quite my color. It's they're all original. Back when I first started, when I got my trains at 8 years old, and from then I've added more. Of course, the fire hall and the grocery store, the hospital. But now the church, the church is all. I always made the church I tried to make the church the center point of the train layout, where I used to have it in the main part of the city, and the roads used to go around it. But this time it's off to one end. The gas station's off. I sort of changed the idea of the road layout on this one. Used to have the main street down the middle, church at the end of the street, and then it branched off it this way. I put roads on both sides and crossed back with a medium down each side. As I guess, I don't know, being an electrician, I like lights. I'd like to do more to it, but I don't know enough about landscaping. So it's stuck there, and that's the way I like it. I wanted to build a roundhouse, and so I started looking into papers and looking into books, and then I sat down and I remembered in the city of St. Thomas, in the New York Central Yards, they had 2 huge roundhouses, and I remember going in them with my grandfather. And it's sort of picture there today, so that's why I ended up building that one. It's all scratch built, and it's surprisingly it's lasted this long without too much damage. But that's the oldest one of the oldest things I've built that's still hanging around, and that's all wood.
Is there anything out there that you'd love to have that you don't have? And what recent changes in technology has improved your layout and your trains?
I'd love to have more room. Yeah, there's things out there I'd love to have, and they're coming out with more and more new stuff every year. Lionel comes out with 2 magazines a year. Now I sort of stuck with Lionel, but there's Mike's, MTH. They have stuff that's coming out. They have a great sound system. Like I picked up a Galloping Goose. The sound system in it is actually quite nice.
We'll be making a mail stop at Placerville. End of the line for the RGS. That's Lizard Head off to the right.
I never had cars that had lights in them, and now, a gentleman up in Barrie is putting LEDs and fiber optics into small cars, and into the crane. They just got the crane back, and he's got 22 lights in this thing. And yeah, now it's giving more realism to the layout. When I go to the shows, I go with the intention of not buying a thing. I go for parts, because I always pick up more parts. But if I'm walking by a booth and a certain vehicle just jumps right off the booth into my arms and says, take me home, I don't want to stay here anymore, take me home, I feel obligated to take that item home, if it's the right price.
How many trains can you run at one time?
I can run 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 trains all at once. I don't, because the noise is so loud in a closed-in area like this, that if I had a bigger area with a taller ceiling, the noise wouldn't be as loud. But yeah, I can run 7 trains at once here.
Any final thoughts on model railroading?
It's a good hobby. It's fun. It's actually relaxing. Could get frustrating, but good place to, after a bad day at work, you can come and sit back and enjoy the relaxation. Just the fact to come in here, turn the lights on, and turn the overhead lights off, and to sit back and just look at it and say, okay, now what do I do?